Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today's phrase is to pin the blame, and that means to assign or give responsibility for a problem, error, or failure to someone or something else. When we use this phrase, there's often a sense that we are somehow trying to shift accountability away from ourselves so that we don't need to take responsibility. But it's also used when the person who's responsible for something is asked to take responsibility. Let's look at some examples. When the project's timeline started to slip away, the manager was quick to pin the blame on the engineering team. During the meeting, the director tried to pin the blame for the budget overrun. The coach didn't hesitate to pin the blame on the players after they lost the match. When the client complained about the product's defects, the customer service representative was instructed to pin the blame on the manufacturer. So you can hear there in each of these examples, pinning the blame is something we do sometimes to avoid taking responsibility. You know, in British culture, pinning the blame or even just trying to blame the right person is something which comes across very strongly in news reports. Our media don't just report the story, but they're very quick to want to blame someone. There has to be someone there to take responsibility, someone there that can be blamed, someone that we can pin the blame on to make ourselves feel better. Now, this is a really strong thing in our media. And if you read any story, you'll soon see that blame is always pinned on someone. And it's very unfortunate. So we're going to look at a few of these stories today. Now, one big story that's making the media today is that they say in our newspaper called The Mirror that the price of a pint of beer is going to be rising to £9. £9 for a pint of beer, and they're expecting that rise to continue up to £14 in the coming year. Now, the government have been very quick to point out that they've actually been reducing tax on alcohol in pubs, so it's not their fault. However, some of the industry regulators and people who work in the industry are saying, well, you know, it's the rising cost of energy. It's also the rising costs of keeping staff. So they're very quick to blame people. And the first place where this is going to be introduced is the new co-op arena in Manchester, who've already said they'll be charging around £9 for a pint of beer. And another pub in London has already said it will be putting up its prices to around £9. And if it doesn't, it will face closure. Many people are saying, well, we'll just drink at home, because in England you can buy alcohol for £1 or £2 and then you can simply drink at home. That might be a solution. So there we are, pinning the blame is what they're doing when they're telling us this story. Another news story, which is going around today, is about our post office scandal. Now, you might remember this one. Our post office introduced a new computer system in the 1990s, and it had some bug in it. As a result, it reported that many of our post office staff were stealing money. When that happened, the post office staff, some went to prison, some took out loans to repay the post office, and even some people killed themselves because it destroyed their communities and trust in their community. Remember, post offices are usually the central hub of community life. And so the government has started a public inquiry, really just to pin the blame on people to see where everything went wrong. And today, in our news, and this news story is from the Daily Express, it says, a former post office executive has said she never knowingly did anything wrong in the scandal involving the post office. Angela van den Boogaard began her evidence at the post office inquiry yesterday by saying she was truly, truly sorry for the devastation caused to wrongly convicted sub-postmasters and their family. She said, I didn't knowingly do anything wrong, and I would never knowingly do anything wrong. And apparently someone pointed out to her that she had not apologized, and then she gave further statements. And that's what prompted her to give a full apology. It's very strange because clearly they're looking for someone to blame. And this report shows us that they really want to pin the blame on someone. So she's saying, well, I knew nothing, really. So you can't pin the blame on me because I didn't know anything. And this again shows the absurdity of how we approach things like this. It's always with an attitude of someone has to be punished. I'm not sure if that's because of our history with religion, where we had this idea of good and bad in our society. But whatever it comes from is kind of toxic, always looking to blame someone. And if you read any story today in our media, you'll see that pinning the blame is a kind of a big thing here. And another scandal that's going around the UK media today is about our carers allowance. So basically, if you have a sick relative, you can nominate yourself to look after them. And if everyone agrees, the government will give you £80 every week for you to help the person. That may mean spending time with them if they're depressed. It might mean practical duties like dressing them in the morning. But if you also have a job and you earn more than £150 in a week, you must pay all of that £80 back to the government. And there's a lot of very unhappy people because the government have been doing their housekeeping and they've discovered that many people have been earning more than £150 per week, as well as claiming this special carer's allowance. So the government, of course, has said, okay, for the last number of years, you've been claiming our allowance, but you've also been earning more than £150 a week. So we want our money back, please. And this again has descended into some kind of blame game where the government is really pinning the blame on the people, but the people are saying, wait a minute, you can't just come and try to take money from me. And the government's saying, well, actually, we can. Here's the bill. Thank you very much. And so there's a lot of difficulties with this. Carers are insisting that the government excuse them or change the rules. But the government is saying, well, when you applied for this benefit, you knew that you couldn't earn more than £150 a week. So we're pinning the blame on you. Those are the rules, and you broke them. So you can hear there that that's not going down very well in British society because we have a lot of sick people. Yeah, so pinning the blame, that's been the words of today. Those have been the words of today. We have a food festival in our town today, and I'll be interested to see what they're selling. It's never usually a very big affair. It's usually grossly overweight people trying to sell me cheese, which they say is from the Mediterranean. And there's always people wearing Mexican hats, sombreros, selling tequila as well. So never usually a big thing, but they always pin the blame on not many people attending because of bad weather. Yeah, they always pin the blame on the weather every year. And I must admit that it's very cold here today, and rain and snow is expected. The temperature right now is actually only 0. Well, there we are. That's it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this. And remember, it's kind of unhealthy to pin the blame on someone, especially if, well, there is no one to blame. And also if you're avoiding taking the blame yourself. So that's it from me. See you. Bye.